Enjoy
Hey,
that.
welcome to the BAM Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, and today, descending into our cheesy dog and monkey show, is Steve Kenson, gracing us with a patina of respectability. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thanks. It's good to be back.
It's always a pleasure to have you. And accompanying Steve is Mr. Dan Hauser, the line artist for Icons, and a heck of a guy with just a magnificent man cave. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's mostly video game stuff.
All right.
Or my little sideline project thing that I'm doing over on YouTube.
Dan has got a YouTube streaming channel where he plays old school video games and offers
Yep,
social
and
commentary.
I'm doing a series of shows called License to Play, where I review licensed old games like Karate Kid on NES and games that people think might be bad, but I find redeeming things in them.
Okay.
Sometimes there's some games that are just irredeemable, but yeah, I'm on episode 6. That'll be out Friday.
If you want to shoot me a link in the chat, I'll put it up as a banner so people can check it out.
Sure. Yeah.
And this charming bearded fellow over here is Jacob Blackman, a frequent co-host and a wheel in his own right in the RPG sphere. So Steve.
A tiny wheel.
Tiny wheel. Tiny. We're going to talk about Icons, which is a great game.
Yes. Thank you.
And there are cool new things happening with Icons. Let me share a screen here real fast. You have reactivated the Icons Patreon.
Yes, indeed. Well, I've reactivated my old Patreon and made it into an Icons Patreon.
And what's going on there? What are you doing?
Pretty much whatever I want. The Patreon is basically a way for me to do more Icons content on both a steady schedule and with a steady amount of income so far as it goes. And given that my approach to Icons tends to be a little eclectic, the Patreon model actually suits it pretty well because it gives me an excuse to take a lot of my ideas folder. I basically just got a file where I jot down, hey, I should write this for Icons sort of things all the time. And a lot of those ideas are kind of random, and they make for good periodical content to show up on something like a Patreon, but they don't necessarily make for a great book so far as that goes. So a lot of those ideas are going to show up on the Patreon, whether they're just variant rules notions or behind the scenes stuff, or this particular idea for a character, or this particular idea for like a mini setting kind of thing. It's going to be pretty eclectic. I'm still working it out. We just got started, but I'm excited about it. There's a lot of fun stuff I'd like to do, and I'm hoping that people will enjoy the content as it rolls out.
Okay, cool. So I've got a banner up here that's unfortunately blocking your face right now, Steve. That's patreon.com/Steve Kenson, and that's where folks can find that. And this, like you say, it's just brand new. We just
just launched this month.
Yeah, the atomic batteries are back to power. The flux capacitor is flexing.
Turbines are to speed.
Exactly. Can you tease us, tantalize us with what the first few monthly releases might be?
Well, the first release is already up, and it's an article called "Keeping Specialties Special," and is sort of a game designer's notes piece, basically looking at how specialties are set up in Icons. It was pretty much based on some feedback from fans who are doing a lot of design for characters on groups like the Icons Facebook group. And people are talking about, wow, it seems like this character should have a lot of specialties. And pretty much the upshot of it is that specialties and Icons tend to be kind of limited in comparison to a lot of what you'll find in terms of skills in other RPGs, even other superhero RPGs. And the notion of looking at, does the character really need this specialty, or are their ability scores just too low?
Yes, that comes up occasionally. Now that I mean, oh God, I think about it right now, and I just had a pang in my heart about to say, like, at convention games, because that happens all year, and I run icons at conventions. Anywhere I'm guesting, I run icons at the table, like at my table. I go, hey guys, you want to see how to play icons? And I run it for people. But that tends to happen when we do random generation occasionally, when people don't have like they didn't come to the table with a preconceived notion of what kind of thing they might like. Like if they know, for example, the Justice League cartoon, and they kind of know about superheroes, but they're not like into the genre. They're like kind of come up with something fun, but they're like, oh, what do I do? That specialty issue comes up. It's like, well, I mean, or conversely, they have an attribute that's high enough to where a specialty would just be superfluous.
Kind of
it's like,
redundant.
well, yeah, exactly. Your intellect's super huge, so are you just adding this to have one?
Right.
Because you have one? Let's come up with something better. I mean, that's the fun part of character creation, though. On my part, I love doing that part.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a great supplement for GM.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just good to do a design note that explains what was in my head when I put that system together, because sometimes it's not clear why it's done that way, and so it leads to different assumptions based on your expectations. Different game systems will have an expectation that the characters will have a lot of skills, and other game systems less. So sometimes it's helpful to say this is why this is the way it is.
So are these going to be compiled every once in a while into a big PDF and distributed vectors that way?
Maybe. Okay. I have thought about, it depends on how things come out. I've thought about doing something that I am tentatively calling the Icons Annual, that might just be a compilation of everything I did on the Patreon the previous year in one book. Or if some of the Patreon content turns out to have a really good solid theme to it that would make a book, I may take just some of that content and maybe add new stuff and turn that into a book. It depends on how it all comes out, honestly.
Okay. And I'm always at the ready.
Yep.
Indeed. We should mention that there's a cool thing we've been doing. You're really doing it on the Icons Facebook page, where you have your Saturday random character generation.
Oh, Secret Origin Saturdays.
Yeah, Secret Origin Saturdays. That is a good time. I've been in a few of them.
Cool. Yeah, it's turned out I did it for a few weeks and then basically said, so should I keep doing this? And the reaction was generally really positive. So we're going to keep it rolling. I like Secret Origin Saturdays is basically I take a random character from the Icons Assembler app, screenshot it, and post it on the Icons Facebook group and say, okay, here's a set of character stats. Make up a character. What's the origin and theme and all of that goes with this character. Because one of my favorite things about Icons is randomly rolling up characters and then going, how am I going to make this work?
It was the thing that sparked my imagination just when your first article about it, when you talked about Saguaro Volcano and I believe it was Whisper is the name, right?
Yep.
The question analog.
Yeah.
And Saguaro just was like, oh, that is so cool. You can grab anything and make it into anything. And so Saguaro in my head is my thing that anytime I go, how much do I like Icons? I'm like, oh, I would do it forever because I love it. And Saguaro is is my spirit animal as far as the game goes.
Well, I mean, he's definitely the poster boy for that element of the character creation, because he was a playtest character that Ben rolled up at the table and made up. He was like, okay, he's this super strong guy with this like damaging aura who doesn't need to drink, and he's a super powered cactus guy clearly, and he was like, I would have never thought of this character if you had just told me cold to make up a a superhero character.
But the art is so iconic for that character. He appears
that's all Dan.
You're seeing it all the time. It's a beautiful character.
I'm truly humbled to have Darren Mcalbert. He did a sketch of I sent it to Steve because it was just so good. he did a sketch of Saguaro, and I was just like, oh, that, because he also really liked the design. I was like, man, that's really high praise coming from one of my heroes. It'd be like if Don Bluth goes, I really like the way you drew that. I'm like, oh my god.
Right.
Okay.
Calvert's definitely a mensch. Wanted to say, hey, we have an audience. People are actually watching us live, including Sean here on Facebook saying, join the Patreon when it was announced. So looking forward to the future content. Well, thanks, Sean. Appreciate that.
Expect to see me on Saturdays, by the way. Now that I have been so like just out of everything past couple like weeks.
I hear it.
I'll sketch whatever comes up. So whatever we're making up on Saturday, whatever we come up with for a character, I'll sketch it.
That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, we get some great responses from people about their ideas too, about what would go for that character.
Yeah, my favorite that I came up with was Inspector Kraken a month or two ago.
Yep.
But do you have any favorites from that competition? You've been doing it for a couple months now.
Gosh, there are a number. I liked just recently we did one that was a lot of people came up with these various sort of nanotech android characters because the character had duplication and servant and all of that and was an artificial. And I just liked how that random set of stats, a lot of people went for like duplicating android or nano swarm or something of that sort, that worked along with that theme. And it's really interesting to see when those things just sort of align.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been a fun tradition. Yeah. Well, hey, I am a 48-year-old man with a failing memory, and I promised folks I was going to ask you questions from the Facebook page, and I'm going to forget in about 90 seconds if we don't do it right now.
All right, let's go to it then.
Let's do that. What were we talking about? I remember. Hang on a second. Here we go. Okay, here we go. And this was from a few weeks back before we had to reschedule because of reasons.
Yes.
Jason Childs, questions for the podcast. M&M has a few setting books like Freedom City and Emerald City. Would you ever consider such a setting book for icons?
Yes and no. I when I set out to do icons, I was very resistant about the notion of giving it a setting because one of the things I wanted to do with icons was more sort of go for what I would refer to as the sort of the golden age of superhero RPGs feel, where in a lot of early superhero games, there was sort of the implication of a setting, where, all of these various characters they would talk about obviously shared a world in one way or another, but it wasn't presented as a setting, in terms of here's the world and here's its entire history and here's this entire geographic area and broken down into excruciating detail and here's every character and their entire background, and which was also something I'd already done with Freedom City. And so, I needed, if nothing else, I needed some distance because I just didn't want to be like, oh, and here's Freedom City again.
Is it like being a rock star and people want you to play your hit again and again?
Sometimes.
Nerd City.
So Icons was sort of approached like that. So, I mean, obviously, all of the characters coexist and, we reference their backgrounds and, so-and-so is connected to is this person's arch nemesis and those kinds of things. So there's sort of a setting there if you look for it. But, we don't necessarily go into a great deal of detail. Dan has done more a bit, in terms of looking at his, sort of Victory City stuff and, his Phalanx stuff in terms of a more coherent setting. But
the reason, but in Mike, when we worked together on Stark City.
What's that?
Yeah,
do tell.
It was a campaign setting for Icons. It is if you're looking for a campaign setting for Icons, Mike and I had a design, like not written down Bible, but our intent was to make a utilitarian document for a big city that you can take chunks out of. And if you liked, for example, the Underworld which is one of my favorite parts of the book. And the robot gangsters and the Green Fairy, like all of that. If you want that stuff, but you don't need the rest of the city, you can just grab that, and it's all designed so that you can use it chapter and verse. With with Rise of the Phalanx and currently the Fall of the Phalanx, Victory City was actually, if I could have gotten away with it, I would just call it the city or your city, because there's not really a setting. It's for your characters to become the Phalanx and to have the city. You can really just add or subtract whatever you want. It's been really hard to write that way. Like, you can use whatever you want or not, but to give it all links in a chain to allow it to like actually stick together, make a good pizza crust, so to speak, is really difficult, but it's worthwhile because, in my opinion, Icons is about the players and the GM and referee just coming up with their own unique version of whatever it is in the book. The adversaries and the heroes in the back of the book. Oh, thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. All of that, like anything that Rise of the Phalanx, if you like what it looks like and you like how it is, as Steve is the editor and layout, and he made everything look amazing.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, though. Yeah. But again, my idea is if you can't use it as a GM, it's probably not worth making because no one's going to use it.
Well, I mean,
I would, because I buy everything. But if you're a player, and I make a splat book, and what are you going to use it for? That's why when Steve comes up with things like Rogues, or I love that. But when he also comes up with things like A to Z, stuff for players to use too. I love that, especially because Icons, in my opinion, has a little bit of a GM side bias right now in terms of how I do things. I make stuff that GMs say. I wanted to make stuff that GMs would buy and use, because I have a whole living room full of splat books that I love dearly for like Phase Rip and I think World of Darkness is probably my biggest expenditure of all the gaming stuff that I have. But I have books that I never like. Why would I need Vancouver by Night? They're never going to leave their home city. I love the art and I love the stories, but how much money did I waste on that when I could have been spending things on useful things? And I want to make useful things.
Well, what happens in Vancouver? Mainly TV productions, but hey, Jason Childs has more questions.
All right.
Hang on, let me do my Jason Childs voice. Have you considered making official VTT tools, interactive sheets, tokens, maps, etc. for Icons, for Roll20 and others?
I would love to do that. I have to learn how.
All right, fair enough. Question 3. Mighty Saguaro action figure. When's it going to happen?
I have no idea. When we learn how to make action figures as well.
Yeah. However, I'm working on a Mighty Saguaro Funko Pop that I got for Christmas. I got a DIY one.
Oh, nice.
And when it's done, have 2 of them, and I'm gonna send one to Steve. So when I finish it, I'm gonna have my wife paint it after I've sculpted and everything. So you'll have one coming to you, and I have one for me. So as far as action figures go, I don't know.
Let's get Etsy shop. That's a side hustle. But, John Mcmullen, God bless you, John. Good to see you're still with us. He has questions. John Mcmullen, I'm doing the same voice as Jason Childs. Sorry, I just do one voice. Questions. Updating older adventures to Assembled and beyond. The apps edition of Nax has really changed some write-ups. How is that going, and what can I do? What can we do to help it along?
Well, you can subscribe to the Patreon.
There we go.
And updating some first edition Icons adventures may be a Patreon project. That's one of the things on my long list of, hey, I could do this on the Patreon.
Spider Fridge needs to be updated.
So that's coming in the Hero Pack updates.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was announced yet, but yeah, we're already working on that. You can share that thing I sent you. You get that thing I sent you?
It's just my weak memory, Dan. I don't want to forget these questions.
It's okay.
We'll tackle that after questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Let's get through a few more. Then we'll announce Dan's big news. Don't let me forget Dan. Guys in the comments, there's at least 6 of you. Don't let me forget Dan's big news if you see me go off topic and start talking about Star Trek or something. All right.
If I start doing George Lucas's voice, just slap me.
All right. Fair enough. All right. You might have mentioned some of these. Without actually doing an explicit setting, I remember Steve saying he was not enthusiastic about that. What about places? It might be interesting to say feature write-ups, a super spy organization, a crime family, basically covering the features in the world building section of the world book. Is that more Patreon content, maybe?
That is also more Patreon content. One of the things folks will probably see is both like pieces of a setting. I may be more inclined on the Patreon to do stuff that's a little less game master facing and a little more player facing in terms of here's a write-up of some heroes, here's a particular organization, here's a particular location, feature, those kinds of things, along with the notion of some setting ideas I have of here's a sketch of a setting, that you can do with icons that's particular to a type of game, rather than just, generic superheroes, so far as that goes. So those are both good possibilities.
Okay. Next question from Mr. Mcmullen. Is there an errata document for Assembled?
There is. It's badly in need of updating, and I really need to go through it again in terms of making it available and also actually doing a round of updates on the core book.
All right, cool. And we're to the last question from Mr. William King, who's a heck of a guy. Sorry, you're getting the same voice as to the first two guys because I just did that one voice. Would you consider entering into a licensing agreement with comics publishers? I'm certain that plenty of indie creators would jump at the opportunity.
Would I consider it? Sure, but there is literally no comics publisher that is going to offer me terms that I, an indie publisher, can possibly afford. As it is, I've been doing licensed RPGs in one form or another for decades, and more often than not, the licensors for major IPs are smart to consider role-playing game licenses an advertising expense that they can write off rather than a source of income. As far as that goes, the amount, the running joke is, especially for comic book publishers, the amount of money that a comic book publisher is going to make off of a role-playing game versus licensing a lunchbox is orders of magnitude, and it's going to be way easier for their licensing guy to go look at a lunchbox and go, "Yep, that looks right." Than here, read this 300-page book and give us a complete list of everything that's wrong in it.
Indeed. And a question from Sean. Sean, I'm just going to use my regular voice because I'm getting a little scratchy. Any thoughts to have some earlier adventures collected for a POD hardcover? That's a pretty good question, actually. As
a matter of fact, folks who are familiar with the Rise of the Phalanx collection. I have been looking at the idea of, as we update some older adventures, doing or continuing a series started with Rise of the Phalanx called Giant Size Icons. That basically would be print-on-demand collections of older adventures. A lot of it is doing the updating work and formatting work and the layout and all of that. It's a bit of a slog, to be quite honest.
All right, cool. That is the last question I have. Jacob, did you have any questions?
Unfortunately, no. You guys pretty much covered some of the things I was going to ask Steve. So. Other than what are some of the future ideas you have for the Patreon that you're willing to spill?
Well, it's like I said, it's a pretty eclectic grab bag at this point of talking about various just sort of system and rules notions and variants to bits of setting material, character write-ups, heroes, villains, locations, setting ideas, campaign ideas, pretty much anything that I can reasonably put into an article, that's a bite-sized chunk. Some ideas it may turn out, might turn into a series. We'll see. I don't want to start the Patreon off necessarily with, part 1 in a 10-part series. But some things may take more space, in which case I may spread the release out over, a few months. we'll see how that goes.
I'm already backing at a $5 level, but I'd bump it up to 25 if there was, monthly Saguaro short stories. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do any fiction for it.
Are we going to see the Metaskulls show up in any other non-Christmas themed adventures?
They might. I mean, it's the shape-shifting, bad guy aliens are good for so many different things. Yes. So,
I'm glad somebody likes the Metaskulls.
Right? I mean, Dan has already, sort of touched upon them in Follow the Phalanx, tangentially. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were back in some form.
Speaking of Dan and Dan's art, wait, one last question. Here we go. I think this might be a personal friend of yours, Steve.
Right? I was going to say, have I paid you for this question? Have I started writing any fiction? Not really. I have done a few very short stories over the past few years, mostly in anthologies. The most recent one was a short story in the Sovereigns anthology for Blue Rose. But I don't write a lot of fiction these days. I have discovered I've written quite a few novels back in the day, and I've discovered that I'm not a great long form fiction writer. So far as that goes, I am much better at writing game stuff. Which is just a different kind of creativity. So I haven't been really all that motivated to dive into too much fiction for the most part. If the right idea comes along, maybe.
And I replied back that Steve always looks good. And you said that is true.
Yeah, so you're very kind. Thank you.
So
I have never in all my 27 years.
I'm not going to forget you, Dan.
No, that's fine.
Here we go. Dan, look at this beautiful and quirky black and white line arc. Oh my, this just showed up in my inbox. Can someone tell me about this?
Sure. As part of the renovation of a lot of the first run stuff, this is the Hero Pack. If you participate in Hero Pack 1 and 2 and moving all the way to just about Hero Pack 3, I think. I did one that was Jack Kirby art style. I think that was 3.
I love that one.
All the way up to, oh, well, thank you. All the way up to 4. So I'm redoing all of the art into the current icon style. The books will be hopefully laid out in the current icon style and re-released. If you participated, you would just get an updated PDF. And then it was basically to facilitate possible. We got a lot of requests. I get requests via email that I pass along, and I've mentioned to Steve a number of times that people ask, is there going to be a print-on-demand version of the Hero Packs? Because I laid out the first Hero Packs terribly. I just did it in Photoshop. So I kind of eyeballed everything. Nothing is. Most of the text is just an image file. So it's really not easy to go over. So I have to go through and physically rip data out of like Hero Packs 3 and forward, because those actually have a blurb of an origin. Some editing will have to be done to make sure that they fit into the whole like quarter column or less background setup that we have for most of our splat books. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but I wanted to show everyone that I've been working on upgrading everyone's artwork. So if you did get one, and I've got your names, I'll be sending you an updated version of your character one. So I've got everything colored. And this is just page 1 of 3. I'm almost finished now with Hero Packs 1 and 2. And what a good idea this was before I started. Like, just a nice thing to do and a wonderful thing. And then now I'm on page 50 of like about 120 of the second book. And I'm like, oh my God.
What have I got myself into?
Making Icons fans happy, I hope. That's what I hope I got myself into. And it's coming along nicely. Everything's sketched already. I just have to ink it and color it. So I'll be sharing more of the images as we go along over on the Facebook group. I have Oh, thanks, taking the Mickey. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
I did a lot of studying of Jack Kirby and of John Buscema, who basically used his he kind of softened the look to be the how to draw comics the Marvel way.
Dan, you do a great Jack Kirby rift. You really do.
It was hard. It was hard. I had to bust out my like Superman and the Forever People comics, my Newsboy Legion comics from back in the day, to just kind of flip through and go, man. He even made Jimmy Olsen look dynamic. You know, like Jimmy Olsen's running through like the tunnels under Cadmus with the Newsboy Legion, and like the Tomorrow People are on their big ass motorcycles. I'm like, how do you even think of this as something that's like a block outside of Metropolis? That's just up in the woods. This weird thing where there's like multi-dimensional creatures, and if you go in the woods, you might die. They know this. In Death and Return of Superman, like Superman gets knocked into Cadmus, and he's like, "Oh crap! I hope nobody wanders in here. They could die." I'm like, "Really? You haven't done anything about this? Nobody has?" Like, no, those are just the woods where you die.
Just don't go there.
It's like the Pine Barrens in Jersey. You don't go there.
Exactly. Or that mountain out in Seattle.
Hey Dan, speaking of the hero packs and all of that, are you doing commissions for anybody?
See, that was going to be the other thing I wanted to discuss with you later. But I have a Patreon that I haven't set up yet. It's been the initial idea was to set up a Patreon for maybe doing an Icons comic, and you said we were talking about there's a lot of logistics that go with that. We'd have to find writers and we'd have to find everything else. So like I'll just put it aside. So I've got a Patreon waiting, and the idea for my Patreon was just to do, if I was going to do hero packs, the way that I was doing them before was like first it was just me, and it was terrible because I was just keeping track of my own stuff, and everything got done, but it just took forever. With a Patreon, I'll actually have a list, ongoing list, and a hopper system. Everyone can see where their stuff is in the system. So that's what the Patreon will be for when I set it up. So any future hero pack stuff, I think is going to be through that method, because it just seems more organized, and and it can continue. It can be perpetual, and then we just grab those who want to have give their version of their hero to us to put in commercial products. We'll make hero packs out of that, and everything else they can keep.
If you want to do a comic, I might direct you to our friend Jacob over here, because he's doing a Masters of the Universe action figure comic right now on Patreon that he's having some success with. And
yeah, but I'm cheating and using toys. I'm not drawing out each page.
Right.
Well, Dan's going to have a Saguaro.
As a fan of Toy Fair, I love that idea.
I do have to buy a lot of toys, though.
Oh no, not that.
You can do the budget. You can do the budget version. Just go to Goodwill every month, and it's like $5 for a big bag. Oh, hey, I know that guy. So, all right, we're almost done, but wanted to give wanted to mention Dan's YouTube channel, because us YouTube folks have to stick together, right?
Absolutely. The YouTube channel is called Retro Station 1989. I review retro games, and I do streaming. I also stream when I'm drawing. So in fact, tomorrow from noon until, I don't know, when I'm tired of inking stuff, you can watch me ink stuff from the hero packs. So it won't take me forever to get to that point. I promise you. But before we go, I want to share something with you here, Mike, and you can throw it up on the screen.
Sure.
So I'll find it, since I didn't know Jacob was doing a Masters of the Universe thing. That's so cool.
I know that reminds me so much of the old like Wizard magazine comics when they would doing strips with all of the action figures.
Yeah, I love Twisted Toy Fair.
Those things were great. Yeah,
I got every issue, and they always made me smile. They were so funny.
Oh man, it was so good. And I always wondered how they found things, like they would have like a big Jim and a $6 million man. I'm like, dude, where did they even find one of those? I was alive and wanting one at the time that they were popular.
When you're the folks who run Toy Fair, you get a lot of stuff.
They have friends who have warehouses.
Right. Exactly.
Boo. Those cheating. Unless you're going to a flea market and getting hives, you're not really collecting anything.
Unless you're risking scabies, you're not really trying hard enough, are you?
Right.
Scabies, or getting stabbed from an urchin.
considering these are Walmart exclusives up until January 1st, in order to get these, I had to go to Walmart a lot and risk COVID.
Oh, damn, dude. Well, then you count. That counts.
Yeah, exactly. Taking risks for your
actually.
art. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, dang it. Okay, I was gonna share a sketch with you
website
that I'd done. It's a picture of Lion-O attacking Skeletor.
Ooh. Is this on your DeviantArt or?
No, not yet. I'll post it when I've done the inking for it. But it was just funny. It's the best part is like it's not Skeletor going, "Yeah, I'm gonna get you." He's like, "What the hell?" Like I just think that Lion-O would take a more forceful stance towards Skeletor. He-Man takes sort of like, "Why, Skeletor, you dumb bastard? Come on, let's wrap it up here, Boney." Lion-O would be like, "You must be destroyed. You're a skeleton man."
Some of those franchises you think just should mash up but never did, like that Karate Kid Rocky mashup that apparently made it to the development stages before it was next. So
I drew a picture of Karate Kid and Johnny, so Daniel-san and Johnny, back to back like this, right? And behind them is the Cobra Kai Dojo banner ripped down, and behind it is the Cobra symbol. So, so Kreese is training Cobra soldiers now instead of like. I'm so stupid.
Hiding in plain sight.
But I thought I was like, I'm going to make a game, literally. And I talked to Steve about this. In fact, shortly after that, I had a dream, and I called Steve in the morning. I was like, "Steve, I think I'm going to make this thing eventually." And it was just about like the 80s and like how cool it would have been to have, some things mix up. Like, for example, if you had all of the sort of superpower people from the 80s, like Automan and the Misfits of Science and Manimal, where you have one power, and even the Hulk is like the Incredible Hulk. So long as the budget allows it, you can do it. What's the budget of your show? Yeah, you could. I know how you bust through walls in the show, Hulk, but this time you're going to rip a tent open. I know you fight Abomination. You're going to throw a bear really far.
Yeah, that was usually.
It's it's not even a real big bear. It's just like a
guy in a bear suit.
Bear. That thing.
Well, a guy in the bear suit's really affordable. An actual bear, you got, there's laws about that, and,
But that was usually what superheroes fought in the TV shows, because I want to say is like in the Incredible Hulk and in the Secret Adventures of Isis.
There were a lot of longshoremen getting their ass
bears.
How strong they were. They fought a bear.
Yep.
You guys remember that the Incredible Hulk? They're doing a series of TV movies after the show was off the air.
Yes.
And there was the team up with Thor, and I was so psyched. And Thor shows up, and he's just like a dude in furs. He's like, "Hey."
It was the dude in furs who also it wasn't D'Onofrio who played him in Adventures in Babysitting. Another Thor in another movie. He also played Deathstalker.
Oh, same dude. Okay.
Which is why he was Thor in that show. Also, Doctor Strange and Daredevil were in those.
I did not remember that.
Oh, I have them on VHS. I remember them.
I remember the one with Daredevil. I don't remember the one with Doctor Strange.
Very well. It was the closest thing. I don't think people understand these days about how spoiled they are.
Right.
Like, another superhero movie? Blah. I'm like, you understand that version of Daredevil was super cool because that was the only superhero thing on TV other than Misfits of Science, Automan, Manimal. Even the A-Team, I'm like, yes, only their power is never killing anyone with any of the explosions or gunfire.
Yes.
It's like they flipped the Jeep over and nobody was even hurt.
It's funny. I was just working on a thing for the Expanse RPG, and we were talking about some stuff, and I realized, and I put it in a margin note to the developer. I was like, I realized that I have just essentially created the concept of the A-Team in the Expanse in this campaign idea.
Nice.
I would see that reboot.
Right?
I mean, imagine a universe where all of Glenn Larson's like knockoff ideas for superheroes and everything else shared a universe. Like, Automan, I need your help. In fact, I even have a picture I drew of. This is so lame. Like, I did it for myself, but it's Johnny Good from Misfits of Science zapping Automan with lightning bolt because they meet and they don't like each other much. They clash and then they respect each other. I think that's like that's the first half of whatever movie they were going to be in together.
Yes, because like charges repel.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could do a whole show about 70s, 80s properties.
Hijinks, and it will be out in 2022.
I hear you.
I have a document now that I've made, but and the art is coming along.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be on
This
your.
one is a personal obsession of mine. So if anyone ever wants to play it, great. But if not, I don't care. I'll play it.
All right, fair enough.
It'll be in my head.
And Gerald Shoehorn says Rick Smith was a great DD, and we would agree. And we had similar remarks from Sean and Taking the Mickey. So everyone liked Rick Smith.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's going to be in the new Spider-Man, right?
I think,
Everyone gonna be in the new Spider-Man?
yeah, I actually turned them down. I said it was just I can't sell
the
out.
timing just wasn't good.
Yeah.
I'm confirmed for not being in that movie as well.
I think Patton Oswalt's going to be in it 2 or 3 times. So
Good lord.
yeah, well,
he did come up with the entire Star Wars Marvel filibuster. I think
I saw that episode of Parks and Rec. I like Patton Oswalt. He's just in everything.
I even saw him in Space Cop. Red Letter Media's Space Cop. I'm like, Patton Oswalt. Man.
Well, I get it. He's a single dad now. He has a child to support. You got to work.
Gotta get your gigs where you can.
Yeah.
Almost any geek media I turn to, I'm like, oh, there's Patton Oswalt doing a cameo. He's on The Venture Brothers. He's on Rick and Morty. He's on, he wants to be on this podcast.
He's done a lot of voice work. I mean, he was in Ratatouille. I mean, I think he's a voice work guy now.
Was he in Ratatouille, Dan?
I think he was a Ratatouille of some kind. I don't know. I don't watch movies.
As far as we know.
All right. This has been a lot of fun. I got to wrap things up.
All right.
Okay.
There's a day job and there's a hyperactive 7-year-old boy who needs my wrangling. So, and there's my son out there too. So, Steve, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for coming.
Likewise.
Yep. Dan, great to talk to you again, sir.
Always fun.
Jacob, I appreciate you coming along and being the BJ to my bear. Thank you very much.
No problem. If you like quality content like this, please support us on the BAMP Podcast Patreon.
Please, Mike needs more shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, one last comment. Thank you for the stream. Well, you're welcome. Appreciate you watching, sir.
Thanks for the book suggestion, by the way.
Yeah. And with that, got to wrap things up, and we will catch you next time on the BAMF Podcast. Now, there's an awkward pause after I hit end broadcast before we're off the air, so just kind of